I also noticed that even though there are people who are openly talking about using medical cannabis or even recreational cannabis, it still has, I guess, somewhat of a stigma in today's corporate society, or at least on the national scale. Like, people are still hesitant to talk about it. So, what has been your experiences in regards to dealing with that stigma that's still out there, and at the same time, too, trying to at least open people up to talk about their experiences of using cannabis and how it's helped them, I guess, reintegrate into society?
Sure. The stigma is tough, and it's even more difficult because there is no one-size-fits-all solution to being able to remove the stigma, right? There's a lot of reasons that people have this notion that cannabis is bad, and part of it could be due to politics, there's religion, there's individual networks of people who don't support this, right? Like, the fact that it's legal, it's definitely a taboo subject to even talk about. It took me a long time to even be able to get to that point where we could open up about cannabis.
So I want to kind of blow this up into a much bigger context. So for human history, cannabis is used for at least 3,000 years, if not longer, back in human history, and it's really only been considered a negative substance in like the past 75. Say something on that. What about because really it came back to when it was first made illegal. You can say that was after the Mexican-American War. You have racism with this new thing called marijuana, which sounded Spanish, so people got scared of it. And then you had paper mills that realized that they couldn't compete with hemp products as well, so they were doing that. Let's talk a little bit about the journey that cannabis has had with humanity in general.
Sure. To my research and understanding, cannabis has been around since the very first days of any recorded data of our existence, right? Like, there's a ton of articles that reference the findings of artifacts in ancient China, where they were able to still find residue from the cannabinoids in these actual items. And so, like, there is context that takes us way back than any of us have ever even been in existence that indicates that cannabis was a modern part of people's lives in that time. And as you mentioned, it's only been in these last 100 years that for some reason, some way, we ended up taking so many steps back. It was essentially erased from the history books. It was taken off the list of the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, and so they basically shuffled the board and implemented several efforts to have people start forgetting about cannabis, B, having a negative notion associated with it, and then C, implementing either rules, bills, laws, or regulations that would actually start to penalize that use of the plant, whether it was from a medicinal perspective, for construction uses, or any other types of possibilities that you could ultimately use with cannabis.
See, now I actually want to bring on to another concept or another issue that we've actually talked a lot about in Heartlands Media. And so research has shown that the medical properties of cannabis can be used to help people with mental or psychological disorders, cure muscle and nerve pains, and help the disabled function and even combat cancer. Unfortunately, Big Pharma has a huge influence over Congress, and at the same time, too, they're selling these legal drugs over the counter to Americans, which has also led to the increased use of opioids in this country. So what I want to ask is, what have you seen in regards to the lobbying influence of Big Pharma, and when it comes down to people using medical cannabis, who are now using it, have they ever said that maybe they should just go? Have they ever maybe said that they would want to go back to using their original prescribed medicine?
That's a good question and a very loaded one. There is a lot of current efforts with a lot of these major companies, organizations, big pharma, big tobacco, big construction, big agriculture. They're already trying to make their way into the cannabis industry, right? Like, they already have most of their businesses and records and logistics and everything that needs to get set up so that when the day that the green light comes on, they're ready to go. But until the meantime, like, for example, with the pharmaceutical industry, GW Pharmaceuticals has implemented a lot of resources into the development of legal cannabis under the Schedule II list, where they could actually study this, produce the medicine, and come out with their own FDA-regulated product that's called EPDLX, which has been in the news over the recent months. Their stocks have started to grow, and there's a lot of debate on both sides of the table as to whether the cannabis industry should go through that pharmaceutical route or should it go through the standard routes that we see in states like Colorado, where it's more of a open source ability to be able to obtain this medicine.